The summer fling goes down in history as one of the most iconic teenage milestones someone can experience. It seems like a summer staple is to fall in love with the boy next door, spend your days lazing away, only to be tragically torn apart with the first signs of autumn. This narrative is one that has been romanticized through decades of storytelling, passed down through movies, books, and social media posts that frame summer love as fleeting and unforgettable. We've fallen more in love with the idea of someone on our arm on a hot, humid night. And honestly, and more accurately, the relationship has been recoined as the soul-crushing summer fling. Today, I'll be looking at why we fall so deeply in love with the 3-month run, the underlying factors at play, and why the experience can feel so intense. As a victim of this summer fling, I've spent hours reminiscing over my relationship while sitting in a freezing cold math class. But upon some recent reflection, I realized some things about the guy. I realized, and this may not be the case for everyone, but that we never actually knew each other. We just got along. But that was all that really mattered. Our compatibility was because life was easy. We didn't actually need to understand each other on a deeper level, and we didn't have to, because I was 3,000 miles away and I would be home by the end of August anyway. Physical distance from home created emotional distance from responsibility, so understanding felt more optional. I allowed myself to be fully entrenched in the relationship, not worried about what other people thought or whether or not he actually knew me, because it didn't actually matter. The predetermined end date removed any sort of consequence or accountability on my part, making the emotional investment feel a little safer. While the notion that our self-proclaimed soulmate, as people often refer to their summer flings as, may not have actually known us, can be an upsetting notion to come by initially, for me, this came as a comfort, and I realized that this is what is so appealing about the summer fling. Ambiguity leaves space for projection, and projection is more comfortable than confronting the truth. People across platforms constantly refer to their summer flings as the love of their life, or a soulmate, and while many are just doing what is typical of teenagers, playing an event that was definitely not as big or dramatic as made out to be, there is something to be said in the special connection. Summer flings are so special for so many reasons, but the real question is, are they special because of depth and connection, or because of convenience, upplayed by a heightened emotional state? Over the summer, we're generally freed from any pressure or expectation that persists through us throughout the rest of the year. Most people, I'm sure, would say they're happier over the summer, and it's probably due to the release of pressure. Without demanding routine or academic stress, we turn into a tanner, more carefree version of ourselves. Summer is for having fun, being lazy, and making probably stupid decisions that we wouldn't have the emotional capacity to deal with in the middle of December. People often go on what I like to call vacation from themselves, but this term was not coined by me. I found this in a Vogue article written by Eileen Kelly entitled, "Do Opposites Attract?" Funnily enough, I read this article while in the midst of my summer fling, and while it doesn't mention anything about the romance itself, there are a lot of parallels to be drawn between the two. Kelly writes, "So, do opposites attract? I found that the answer is yes, but only when you're on vacation from yourself. Eventually, you come back home, reality sets in, and the wild emotions that felt like love reveal themselves to be the excitement of novelty. The person who dazzles you at midnight might baffle you at breakfast, but there's still value in staying up with them to marvel at the moon." First, I just want to talk about how beautifully written this is, and how it perfectly captures the mental distortion that often comes with a summer relationship. When I first read this, I was sat in my econ class, bored out of my mind, unsure as to what I was even doing there in the first place, and this line struck a major chord with me. So much so that I copied and pasted it into my notes app, knowing that I would want to come back to it later. And I was right, because she speaks so eloquently on incompatibility that it almost makes it seem like a good thing. This reframing challenges the entire idea that relationships must be sustainable in order to have meaning. And the whole concept of being on vacation from yourself perfectly encapsulates who we are over the summer. When we're in a stress-free environment, we are very obviously different from the version of ourselves that has to wake up at 6 in the morning just to sit through 8 hours of class. Stress changes people, their priorities shift, and patience wears thin. When you live in Fantasyland with a guy for months, and come home just to find out that your knight in shining armor is something more akin to the dragons he once fought off when he has a deadline to meet, it can be jarring. Reality reintroduces complexity and nuance that the summer conveniently suppresses. Now, some couples will be able to fight this off, but I've noticed, in teenage relationships, battling hundreds to thousands of miles worth of distance, they rarely come out successful on the other side. The sudden added pressure of stress can permanently fracture and eventually break a relationship. Yet Kelly's statement rings true. There's still value in staying up with someone to marvel at the moon. Just because a relationship is going to inevitably end with you being swept up in a river of your own tears still doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue one. There is still value in impermanence, even when heartbreak is guaranteed. But honestly, when is it not? It's a beautiful feeling to meet someone. No pressure to be perfect, no pressure to perform, just you and your partner. Low stakes encourages vulnerability without long-term consequence. You guys never actually get to know each other, and you guys don't have to, because the absence of obligation makes things easy. Everything feels perfect, hazy, and slow, and has a slight pink tint. And that's because most couples have entered the honeymoon phase at this point. The honeymoon phase, for those who don't know, although I'm pretty sure everyone knows, is a period of time in the beginning of a relationship where everything feels euphoric. Your partner seems to be perfect. And as BoJack Horseman puts perfectly,
when you look at someone through rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags.
The period of time starts at the beginning of the relationship and can end around the 6 to 12 month mark, but can in some cases go up to 2 years. When you think about it, summer flings are only ever just the honeymoon phase. You're getting bombarded with dopamine from every angle, from waking up whenever you want to the high UV. Adding the dopamine that comes with a budding new relationship, you might as well just be overdosing on the happy hormone. These biological factors reinforce emotional attachment, making the relationship feel a lot more intense than it may be. And all of these combined create the perfect opportunity for crazy idealization once a relationship is over. And I think that's the real reason why people often have trouble getting over their little summer boyfriends, no matter how incompatible they may have actually been. When you reminisce, you're not seeing his flaws. In fact, you might have never seen them in the first place. All you see is a version of yourself, happy, tan, and glowing, with a boy on your arm to match. The memory becomes less about the person, and more about the version of yourself you were existing in that moment. What further perpetuates this romanticized image, ironically, is the breakup that haunts with August's arrival. When the relationship comes to a close, it's most often due to circumstance and logistical complications. For many people, the relationship isn't ending because someone cheated or fell out of love. The situation is simply just out of your control. Because of this circumstantial breakup, ending with one, if not both parties still harboring feelings left over from the summer as the leaves begin to fall, it idealizes the whole relationship. The memories that leave the heaviest impression on us are the ones that happened most recently. So when you remember the breakup to feel like two people who were seemingly perfect for each other being ripped apart by circumstance, you begin to perceive the whole relationship as perfect. The breakup was not at the fault of anyone. You guys broke up because you had to, not because anyone wanted to, and both parties leave in tears, still in love. And that experience is heartbreaking, but at the same time, it's also restoring and comforting for a lot of teenagers. So many modern-day teenagers feel unlovable, and while a dramatic notion to come by, that's rarely true, it feels real in the moment, because who else is better at being consumed by a dramatic idea than a teenage girl? Breaking up due to circumstance, and knowing, or at least believing, that the relationship could have persisted had things been different, can be a huge comfort to some. Because for once, you didn't do anything wrong. Your partner didn't leave because you messed up, or you simply weren't enough. The relationship was just doomed from the start. And this is a bit of an unrealistic ideology to take on, because realistically, you guys probably wouldn't have worked out anyway. Sorry. It can be a comfort, and there's no harm in that. And while this can be an unrealistic ideology to take on, because realistically, you guys probably wouldn't have worked out, sorry, it can still be nice to think about, and there's no harm in that. After all, your perspective won't change the situation. It'll only change your attitude. This is one of those ignorance is bliss situations where it doesn't actually matter if the guy knew you, or in the same vein, if your perception is skewed, because whatever, it doesn't matter anyway. It's over. Kelly goes on to write, emotional clicking tricks us into thinking we found our mirror, when in fact, we've stumbled into someone else's funhouse. You laugh, and they laugh back, but it's something slightly different. And these points perfectly sum up exactly what I'm trying to say. We confuse ease, dopamine, and long nights with compatibility. Over the summer, we operate on slightly altered versions of ourselves, laughing at the same moment, but for different reasons, projecting what we want to see instead of what's actually there onto the situation. The funhouse that Kelly describes is distortion created by circumstance, where everything feels magical, not because it's real, but because it's temporary. The reflection we fall in love with isn't truly them, and it's not truly you either. Rather, a curated version shaped by the knowledge that none of this has to last. But this doesn't make it meaningless. We fall in love with who we are during this time, and we associate those happy feelings with the person standing next to us. So when it ends, we mourn not only them, but the loss of ourselves that went with them. The beauty of the summer fling lies not in its longevity, or even its deception, but the reminder that there can still be meaning in things that are fleeting. That things exist to be felt fully and remembered fondly, but not held on to. It's also proof that you allowed yourself to feel something deeply, recklessly, and without any restraint. And that itself is something worth marveling at, even long after the summer's ended. Alright, guys, that's it. Thank you so much. For my returning viewers, first, thanks for coming back. I missed you. But it's my fault that I missed you. I haven't posted in the last 2 weeks. Sorry, that's totally my fault. I won't do that again. Also, setting change. I'm in my bedroom now. I kind of got sick of the car because when I was recording, I was leaning like this, and then I started having like problems with my shoulders. So yeah, welcome to my room. I hope you love it. I'm a big fan of her. And thanks for tuning in. I will see you guys, and I promise this time, because I said this in my last video and then didn't post the next Tuesday, I will see you guys on Tuesday at 4 p.m. PST. I love you all. Mwah.